I have a perfect clip for you which perfectly summarizes what's wrong with Western society. Okay, I am now a big believer that every country or culture or society should present its own view of events. It should have control over its own narrative. You should explain your history and your journey through centuries from your own perspective. However, since the West is a free society, therefore we can never be as dogmatic about our own history as some other cultures are. Therefore, the academia should be free to challenge prevailing views and publish as many books as they want, but they should always be open to scrutiny. However, something changed in the last 20 years or so, and we noticed that how the academia got hijacked by lefty woke viewpoints. Now, I have some theories that there are various reasons behind that. Obviously, Qatari influence, foreign influence, Qatari billions of dollars in American and British universities, they have a role to play. But there's some other underlying issues too. Maybe when societies become prosperous, then they tend to become soft. They liberalize themselves. So much so that they don't really care what's happening to their national identity unless it is challenged to the point where it is facing extinction, such as now. But not 20 years ago. That's why most white people looked the other way when people were being gaslit and people were being guilt-tripped into apologizing for the crimes of their ancestors, for colonialism, for example. People looked the other way. People didn't protest. These woke lefty lunatics were tearing down statues of past heroes who were products of their time. But most people didn't react to it, but now people are reacting to it, which is perfectly fine. So I have a solution to that, that you should never bend over backwards for other cultures. You should always write your own history. So if you're British, then you should always present your past history, including colonialism, from your own perspective. So I have without further you'll understand what I'm saying. So without further ado, let me share this video clip with you where a woke woman and the host are trying to guilt trip and shame this reform counselor. Okay, so let's have a watch.
Let's talk about some things you've done while you've been council leader. Your first decision, I think, was to take down an LGBT pride flag, and you say from now on we only use British flags. Did you get support for that?
What a stupid question. Did you get support for that? Reform is very clear. Like, I don't know this guy, but we know what reform is all about. We know what their talking points are. They just won. This councillor just won in his council. So obviously he has a fresh mandate. It's like you can criticize Trump for whatever you want, but Trump went into the last election on the promise that there will be mass deportation. So if Nigel Farage comes to power and suddenly you start seeing mass deportations, then this will be the dumbest question of all time. That did you have support for this? Of course he does. That's reform. If he were a Labour councillor, then you could say, hey bro, what are you doing? Labour is all about LGBTQ flags and appeasement and kissing ass of other people and introducing DEI, doubling down on DEI and all that crap. No, he's a reform councillor. So what a dumb question, but it gets dumber than that. Wait until that woke woman, wait until a liberal white woke woman jumps in.
Yes, we got support for that, and that's what happened as a result of that. Yes, there were some people that didn't like that fact, but it's pretty simple. The only flags that should be raised on public buildings and state buildings is the county flag, the St. George's flag and the Union flag.
But what about showing support? For example, you know, when France had a terrorist attack, we put the French flag above the Wembley Stadium.
Look, I ain't got a problem with those things. You're standing in solidarity with those with things when those
occasionally, okay, standing with a cause occasionally that can be justified. France had a terrorist attack. Let's put up the French flag. There is an attack on a gay club just because they're gays. Fair enough. I'm actually okay with it. Put up the gay flag just for a day, though. Not every day. We've been seeing this for what? For 10 years now? And gays were given equal rights, marriage rights, almost a decade ago, more than a decade ago. So what is this? So no, I have always said, I don't know if it is an observed phenomenon in political science or sociology. Societies never remain static. They either evolve or they devolve. When you give something up, whatever that is, even in the name of progress, and sometimes progress is good, okay? abolishing slavery is good. Giving equal rights to people is good, although some people might question it today for other reasons. Okay, let's not go there. But it didn't stop there, did it? Look how far we've come from the civil rights movement to today, where white people are institutionally discriminated against. White people are the most discriminated against people in the West. I don't have any shame in saying that. In the wake of Henry Nowak's death, it has become clear. Some police officers from the Southampton police force have already come out and started saying that they were inundated with these race-based grievances, identity politics, victim complex, that they were programmed to behave in a certain way. And I've been saying this since 2024, since that young German police officer died who came to a disturbance that was reported by a Quran burner. But as soon as he came, he went after the Quran burner and not after the Afghan who had a knife, and he was attacking everyone, including the Quran burner. That's why the Afghan. So, but the police officer, this young police officer, German police officer, he came, but because of his woke training modules that he had learned, kind of like these police officers in the case of Henry Nowak, he came. Guess who he came after? He didn't go for the Afghan guy with a knife. He went to that white guy who was burning the Quran. Unfortunately, he paid the ultimate price, because when the Afghan guy got up, he stabbed him in the neck right there, and he died, I think 2 days later. So I've been saying it ever since then, that guy was definitely infected with woke ideology, and he paid the ultimate price. It's dangerous. And that's what happened in Henry Nowak's case. So white people are the most discriminated against people in the West. But it started from, let's give everyone equal rights. Let's end racism, which was a good thing, but it didn't stop there. So societies always either evolve or devolve. And I would say since then, Western society has been devolving, and this is one of those episodes. Yes, it's a good thing to recognize homosexuals. If someone wants to do something, whatever, in the privacy of their home, it's no one's business. It's not state's business to get involved. That's it. But then again, then we got into this whole alphabet mob. Now it didn't end there. They're like, I can tomorrow get up and say I'm a woman, and I can demand to go inside women's bathrooms or their change rooms. That's how loony it is. So no, there is a happy medium. There is a sweet spot. And that's not an extremist position. Reform is not right wing or far right. I actually think that they're very lefty in their approach.
Incidents happen straight away. I ain't got a problem with that. And look, at the end of the day, it wasn't just about a flag or a bit of fabric. It was more about where does the power delegate to, and who is in charge of that. And that's been sorted now. And that was a year ago. But yeah, look, if incidents happen, we'll look at that on a basis.
Marina, what do you think of that decision?
Why? So I just think it's weird.
This is a woke woman I was talking about. I guess in extremely after this.
That you got to this position, you can do so much good for the people, and that's what you chose to focus on.
Oh no, we've done a lot more than that. That's just one little thing.
But why? Say, for example, the LGBT flag, the rainbow flag. Why does it offend you so much?
It doesn't offend anyone. It doesn't offend us. I'm sure he is actually, he's got no problem with gay people. Pauline Hanson, One Nation, it has become Australia's most popular political party. One of his MPs is openly gay, and his gay partner is an Indonesian ex-Muslim, probably an ex-Muslim, I'm assuming. But they're being accused of being, that political party is being accused of being far right. I think even the far right doesn't hate homosexuals, or they only have certain problems with the last bit, transgender bit, where they say, and I have a problem with that too. Does that make me far right or racist? Well, I don't know. That I don't care. So no, we don't hate it. We have different opinions on how these things should be politicized, and to what extent identity politics should be forced down our throats.
You have to remove it.
Let's be actually correct here. It wasn't the pride flag. It was the Progress pride flag. It didn't have planning permission on the building anyway. That was the first problem, which many people don't know about. But it didn't have planning permission.
Well,
so it
use that as an excuse a little bit.
No. It's not just that. But the main problem was that on a government building, we want to represent 630,000 people that are in Warwickshire, and everyone can be represented by those three flags: the St George's, the Union, and the county.
The reason it feels disingenuous is because your track record. You're a person who wants to cancel Black History Month.
What's wrong with that? That's what I wanted to talk about. I'll give my long answer on that.
I think that it shouldn't be promoted or supported by the council and local taxpayers. No, you should be supporting history no matter what.
Yes.
You should be supporting history no matter what.
Hang on
It
a
doesn't matter.
second.
You don't get
So
you don't get
want
certain
to-
history
I got
months
it.
for
So
everyone
what
else.
I'm, what I'm
Marino
getting now
ask.
is that you want to essentially choose the bits of history that are taught, which is that Britain is great and empire is great, and actually not teach the bits of history that you don't like, Black History Month, and also the communities that aren't, I don't know, core to you, important to you, gay pride, whatever. All of those things, scrap. Only talk about the stuff that is interesting to
not
me
at all.
and
I don't know what he said or how he responded to that, but I have a response to that. And this is why I said at the start that no country should apologize to push its own narrative, its own history. If you're a British person, you should explain the entire history of Britain from a British perspective. Even colonialism, okay? Colonialism can be justified under the context of the 17th and the 18th centuries. Every empire up until that point had conquered, had propagated its way of life, its value-based system by conquering other lands. No other country, no other culture scrutinizes its own history the way these whites do. And again, not whites. For some reason, as I said, something changed. You don't learn White History Month in Africa anywhere. You don't learn White History Month in India or Pakistan. I grew up in Pakistan. In Pakistan studies, it was very anti-colonial for understandable reasons. They have their own, they're shaping their own society. That's why they are writing their own history. And sometimes, so much so, I had to learn so much from a British perspective. For example, the whole conquering of India was actually accidental. There was an event called Black Swan, where some East India company's employees were, about a dozen of them were burned alive or so, or something like that. And then that gave the crown a reason to go in and seek justice. And then when they were seeking justice, then it expanded. The narrative that they teach us in Pakistan, or I'm assuming in India it'd be very similar, but don't quote me on that, is that, the Brits came into India with the excuse of trade, and then they spread their tentacles, and then they conquered the whole country. So basically, they're saying they came in sneakily, and then, again, fine, you could zoom out, you can ignore certain bits like that Black Swan incident, you can ignore that, and you can shape your narrative. I think that's perfectly fine, because why would any country like Pakistan or India would celebrate colonialism? I've never seen them thanking the British for laying out railway lines, creating hospitals and universities. Again, it's okay. Just the same way, British people should be free to write their own history from their own perspective. That's it. You don't have to be 100% accurate about everything, but there are always nuances. Every time when I learn something, I see bias even from seemingly very unqualified, unbiased historians. Even they miss out certain narratives because everyone is somewhat biased in their understanding. So my point is, if Americans are going to write their history, they should write their history unapologetically. They don't have to write Congolese history or West African history from their perspective. No, because once you start doing that, look at the end result. You're left with nothing. You build an entire generation that apologizes for your own heritage. No other culture does it. Let me give you another example. America, because it's a free Western liberal democracy, they have free academia, and obviously there are some other reasons too for them going woke. They shame their country or their history for the transatlantic slave trade. Fair enough. Again, I'm not going to justify that. I'm a man of the 21st century, so I cannot justify slavery. But guess what? No one, even blacks, even black Americans, African Americans and Africans, even they don't say anything about the Arab slave trade. Why? So the Arab slave trade, the Trans-Saharan slave trade, or the Indian Ocean slave trade, the East African slave trade, focus on East Africa and Zanzibar, all of that lasted nearly 1,000 years. It kept going until 1961, guys. 1961 in Saudi Arabia and 2001 in Mauritania. Some people say it's still going on. Nobody knows about it. Even Africans don't talk about this. You know why? Because in Muslim countries, they didn't get infected by the woke mind virus. Their professors didn't say that, oh, you know what, we're going to let them write our narrative. Again, I'm not saying that extreme is right too. We should have free academia, okay? We should have free academia, let them do their research, let them publish books and whatnot, but we should always push back against it. I am challenging the idea that we don't just have to accept it. If in Australia, call me whatever you want. I wasn't even born in Australia, but we, in Australians, or the dominant culture, is going to write its own history. We will acknowledge some slip-ups along the way, okay? But Australia, when the Brits decided to come to Australia in 1777, they encroached the Aboriginal land, and a lot of Aboriginal people died and their lives were uprooted and they turned upside down. But the net result was this beautiful country in a desert, okay? We don't have to apologize for it. But when you look at the academia, when you look at the left, I mean, their end game is to cause chaos and then deport every single one of them, and then leave Australia to Aboriginal people. Even Aboriginals don't want that. What are you going to do? Who's going to work in these buildings? Who's going to live in these houses? It just complete. So that's what happens. I mean, my point is that's what happens when you start swinging in that direction. You got to put a hold on this. You got to put a halt on this and say, sorry, we're going to write our own history. That's it. And it may not be 100% accurate, but societies are complex. Societies have so many moving parts. We have millions of people. Therefore, in order to keep a nation state going, because this is our current model, nation states, in order to keep nation states going, perform optimally, then we need to have a narrative, and we need to defend that narrative, and we need to stand firm on that narrative, which is why Jordan Peterson said that you need myths, you need stories, you need heroes. But look at the left. Look what they do. They come after your story, your foundational stories. America, founded on stolen land. Australia, founded on stolen land. Like the very foundation is challenged, yet they live in these wonderful countries. Look what those mistakes of history produced in effect. These Anglosphere countries are the most successful countries in the history of humanity. Touch wood. Well, I've got a glass table, but so in order to keep it going, and they come after our foundational storyline. They come after our heroes. Well, that's Captain Cook or Captain Arthur Phillip, the first Governor General of Sydney, New South Wales, I think later on. Columbus. They go after our heroes, and then they go after the very society that opened itself up. I mean, if these societies were so bad, they would not have enabled this much freedom to its adversaries, to its opponents, to its dismantlers. But I think this is a great time to be alive. I would say this is a renaissance. I was listening to Nick Howie. Is that Nick Howie or Nick Lowe, sociologist? So he was saying something that societies reset every 70 years or so, and it kind of makes sense. I've been trying to make sense out of this, why things are going in a way. You've all heard of that quote, strong people create great societies create soft men create weak societies, and then weak societies, so that cycle. It kind of makes sense. And then there are always some sort of a massive conflict, either a civil war or a global war or something. And it's consistent if you look at it from the time of American Revolutionary War to the Civil War to the First and Second World Wars, and then the social revolution of the 70s and the 80s. And then it created a very weak society which could not sustain itself. Societies need something to operate as societies. You need some sort of a glue that holds us together. Multiculturalism is just one aspect of it. Multiculturalism just doesn't work. There has to be a dominant culture that needs to enforce its dominance through force. That's it, through force. And look what's happening. Anyway, I hope I made sense. My overall point is Britain should not apologize for its history. They should own it, and they should present it from their own perspective. Indians are not writing White History Month. Indians are not writing about British colonialism in some golden words. Not even the good bits are acknowledged, and that's perfectly fine because they have They have to build their own proud society. That's how societies work.